Can you hear me? Ladies, please, and gentlemen, okay. I can see at least one gentleman. Please let me know if my sound is fine. Please, okay. Right, nice to know that. So, how are you all doing? Yay,
Hello,
Friday. Hello, getting ready to have some fun during the weekend. Maybe. Yes, no.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's nice to hear. As you can see, I have a co-trainer today, full time, and not even trying to sleep. So hopefully he behaves. But well, we never know, and I do hope for your understanding.
He looks amazed.
So quite experienced though.
Hello.
This is on my screen. At least I hope so. All right, as usual, I need someone to let me know there's a discussion in the chat that I don't see, because sometimes it just happens so that I don't see the chat messages. So who would like to do that? You might not even have to do anything. I might see all the messages perfectly, but sometimes the chat disappears for some miraculous reason. And if someone could just, if you see that there's a discussion in the chat, people are talking and I'm not reacting, it's not because I'm not interested, it's because I don't see it. Who would be willing to say, hey, look at the chat? If it happens, so who can do that? Who could be my chat manager? Well, if there are no volunteers, just whoever notices an interesting discussion that I'm not reacting to, just please let me know, okay? So we have 1 minute before we officially have to start. Let me just start sharing my presentation. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful. All right then, so let's begin. For those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Olga. I'm a teacher and a teacher trainer. I'm CELTA and DELTA qualified, so I usually have something to say that makes sense most of the time. But anyway, all students are different, all situations are different. If you have something else to share, some alternative opinion or some different experience, feel free to turn on your microphone, tell us your stories, but please be respectful of our very limited time. Usually an hour is not enough. So if you have something to say, please make it to the point, okay? Not just a lot of stories on anything teacher related, just those things that we're discussing today. And today we're discussing what our students do outside the classroom, what we want them to do, what would be really good for them to do, and what we can help them with. And usually we have quite a few participants who are not able to speak. I have some work for you to do. If you are unable to turn on your microphones here, there are some questions from the poll, some questions that you guys shared, or maybe some colleagues that are not present here today. If you see that there's a question that you have something interesting to say about, if you can help one of your colleagues with some difficult, not so difficult situation, feel free to share any ideas in the chat. So giving you not a minute, a minute is too much, 20 seconds to look through the questions. So any activities, any life hacks, any ways to communicate with your students, they would be greatly appreciated by everyone if we could see something in the chat related to those questions. And we'll start discussing More information from our poll. Usually if we think of what a student can do between lessons, the first thing that comes to mind is homework, right? So let's see how many of your students do homework regularly, and we can see that the situation is not too bad, right? So there's a tiny percentage, doesn't even show how much, of our colleagues indicated that it's less than 25%. Which is strange, right? But it's not a tendency. We can see that about half of them do homework fairly regularly. There are still students who forget, ignore, don't have time to do their homework. Still, would be nice, to admit that, okay, most of my students do homework regularly, yes, but as we can see, it's not always the case. There's a percentage that about 5 to 50% or 50%, which could be improved, right? My next question was if it depends on the level, and probably not, right? We can see that there's almost a third for higher and lower levels, and another third with different opinions that it doesn't depend on the level, depends on their commitment, depends on something else. So what else does it depend on if not the level? From all those varied options, I chose the three most popular ones. Some students are just too busy. Some students are not committed enough, and there are such responses as it's just their personality, or it depends on the student, they are just such type of people, and so on. Well, are there any other reasons that maybe I didn't notice, or maybe maybe you can come up with something else? So if it's not the level and it's not being too busy, what else could it be?
For example, in my situation, my student told me that the home task is too easy for her, so she doesn't really like doing this because it's too easy.
Right. That's a good point. So the problem could be not the student, but the homework itself. Yeah, that's a point well made. It's, some food for thought for us. Maybe our homework is not good enough. Anything else?
My student said that his previous teacher gave him too much work. So he just couldn't care less. He was just so overwhelmed. He saw that it was so many, like he said, he complained to me that it was like more than 40 minutes for homework. Come on, I'm not going to do it. So I saw, as I took him from another teacher, I saw that there are so many lessons without any homework done. So he explained it like that, too many.
Right. And I think it's you're not the only one. There are quite a few students who look at the homework and think, oh my, so much work. I will never do it. Sure. I don't even want to start. So what exactly... it sounds like someone is talking not to us. Okay, so I can understand that you have to multitask as well. If you are talking to some other people, please mute your microphones, okay? Because it's a bit distracting. Right, so what exactly do they avoid? Which homework tasks seem to be not very interesting or too difficult, or in some other ways unappealing to them? Writing essays is quite a popular response, recording their speaking, and a lot of similar tasks, like 3 pages of fill in the gaps, and they are not really willing to do that. I have questions as usual, and my first question is, so a lot of you have said it depends on the student, it depends on the student's personality. So what personality features make a student reluctant to do homework, and can we do anything with it?
For example, when they are absent-minded and we have to explain them that they need to learn because their progress depends on it. Because if they don't, they just waste their time and money.
Do you think they really don't understand that? They're mostly adults.
Some they do not realize it if they're too young.
Okay.
I mean, the boys and girls.
Right, and especially if they pay their own hard-earned money.
No,
As a greedy person,
it's not their own money. It's their parents' money,
Okay,
usually.
yeah, if it's children, yeah, that's, you know, then it's not a valid argument for them that you pay money.
Maybe they just value their time and they do not want to do the tasks that cannot be done. For example, I have the students, they are very responsible, they always do their home task, but they are really irritated by the recording tasks and essays because the size of the essay is limited, and the recording sometimes can appear some problems on the platform with the recording, and so it's so funny. For example, I've been checking some recording, and at the end it was like, oh my god, finally I've done this on this stupid platform. So something like this. And at the end of the text in an essay, oh, I would like to say more, but unfortunately.
Okay, thanks. So we have some interesting ideas in the chat, like if they do at least something, that would help them. Yes, or maybe they don't have to do everything, but at least 3 questions from each side. It's better than nothing. Another very general idea that they're just lazy. I'm interested in some more information on self-confident. What exactly does it mean in this context? How does it prevent them from doing homework?
Because they think that they know everything. That is why they're self-confident.
Okay, so they don't
do anything else.
Probably when they are self-confident, or better to say overconfident, they think that they can easily learn English even without doing any homework.
Okay.
My student avoids doing recording because he's just simply shy. He feels bad to speak out.
It happens, right? Some people, it's a bit embarrassing. Okay, then my next question is it possible to have some progress without doing homework? Or is it absolutely impossible? They must do homework by all means.
You can give your students I'm sorry, lady first.
Okay, so the progress will be there, but it will come slowly.
What if they have double lessons every day?
Even if they do, they still need to refresh the material we've covered.
But then they have no time to refresh. They study every day.
Oh yeah, well, in that case, probably. Well, you know, when you're with a teacher, it's more an interaction going on, but you need to have some time to yourself to process
right,
information.
absolutely. So yeah, that's a good idea. And also there's a theory of 10,000 hours, right? In order to master anything, you need to spend 10,000 hours doing that. So it's up to you. If you have double lessons every day, maybe you don't need homework, right? But if you have 2 lessons per week, 2 hours per week, well, then your 10,000 hours are very extended in time, right? Okay, so I think it happens sometimes that students just, maybe they do have time, but they just don't see the way to find this time. And they tell you that I have no time for homework. It's absolutely impossible for me. Then you should discuss it, that they shouldn't expect really fast progress. Okay, another very mysterious, very vague response is it depends on the student. So how exactly does doing or not doing homework depend on the student? Are they also lazy or what? What is the problem?
No, they can just not need it. For example, I have some girls, they study at the university, they study their English, and they somehow just revising their home task and English at Skyeng because topics coincide, and they are preparing for IELTS there, and the girl takes additional classes here at Skyeng just to prepare also for IELTS. So we use this program, and it's not necessarily to force her to do her home task, because actually she just kind of revising these words during the lesson.
Yeah, sometimes they're just overworked, and maybe if we're talking about school-age students, they could be really overloaded with homework from everywhere. Yes, and you just...
Yeah, and I have a businesswoman, and she's an event manager, and she can be sometimes very free, but when she organizes this event, she can be involved in these actions 24 hours, and but she does her homework. She can postpone it, just postpone it. Now, I don't have this problem. All my students are good students.
Great. It's nice.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Okay, and my next question is, we actually touched it already, that some tasks are too hard, too time-consuming, too boring, too embarrassing, and students think that it's just not worth it. I will spend 40 minutes, I will embarrass myself to some unimaginable degree. I don't want to make this recording, I don't want to write this essay, I don't know what to write. So, oh my, I baby-brained the term for this phenomenon in psychology. If someone knows, could you please help me out? So they don't see enough value in this action. That's why it's just easier not even to start. Who knows what I'm talking about? What to call it with one word? Okay, but I'm sure you understand the idea. So when we give them homework, we should make sure that it's actually realistic and manageable for them to do with whatever free time they have. And while it's really helpful for many reasons to write essays, maybe for this particular student, you should come up with something different, right? Okay, let's see what we have in the chat. Okay, homework is something like a monster. Negative association, yeah, from school. Most of us hated homework, but good news is we don't have to hate it anymore. And if we see that students are reluctant to do homework, we should think about the following. Do they really have strong extrinsic motivation? So people who have an exam coming, who are going to change their jobs, who are moving to an English-speaking country, who have something else, you know, some real-life application that is coming soon, and they know that they don't have all the time in the world, they have to improve their English really soon. They don't make any excuses. They don't miss their homework. They don't miss their lessons. They beg you to give them more work, right? Well, there's nothing we can do about that if your student doesn't have the situation, but we can work with their intrinsic motivation. So if our lessons are fun, if they're exciting, if they see something interesting for them, if they feel that they're successful, then they will be more willing to do whatever you suggest. Also, we can classify motivation as integrative and instrumental. If they don't need English as an instrument, like to get a new job or to go studying somewhere and so on, they could want to belong to some community, like people who watch films in the original, people who communicate with online gamers in English while playing some video game and so on. Maybe that would be some motivation for them. So to use English in order to belong to some social group. Another question is, do they have well-defined goals? If they came to study English just because it's trendy now, well, maybe we don't know where exactly we are moving, right? What exactly we're supposed to achieve. So what can we do about all that? How can we find answers to all those questions? Any thoughts? So how can we find out what their motivation is, what their goals are?
To ask them.
Right, exactly. So many problems are solved in a very simple way. Just talk to your students and listen what they have to say. This is it.
Yes, I'd say most preferably talk, but not just simply ask, because they will not always give you the direct answer.
Absolutely,
honestly.
absolutely.
Yeah, so, and I've learned that from some students, you'll have to, like, you'll know it in the process. You'll find that out later as they say. So yeah, I think that will be helpful if I talk to strangers. So he's another point that he wants to add is that he wants to learn to
okay, so communicating with our students is very important, as it turns out. So let me remind you again what is included in intrinsic motivation. It's something that is in the task itself for you. The interest, enjoyment, some curiosity, self-expression, fun. So they enjoy the process. They are here for the process, not for the result. If you have such students, sometimes it seems like, oh my, they don't have any real life goal. What can I do with them? Why are they studying? They will drop out of the class in a week. No, they're here for fun. If you like something, if you like watching movies, let's say, right? No one has to force you to watch a movie once a week or twice a week. You will do it because you enjoy it. And your students who are here just to have fun, they can attend classes for years because they just enjoy the process. We should make it enjoyable enough. All those busy, super busy students, sometimes they just don't know how to manage their time. And we can teach them some tricks. We can talk about short study sessions because, again, if they have that memory of awful school homework, maybe they were sitting for hours doing something. It's unrealistic for an adult, for a full-time working person, right? So maybe they can have 3 minutes here, 2 minutes there, 5 minutes somewhere else, and have some short sessions, but by the end of the day, they will achieve at least something. We should also remind them that it's actually nice to avoid distraction, because if they're doing their homework like I am working now, for some people it's very hard to concentrate if something distracts them. So if they can find some way to avoid distractions, that would be great for them. Travel time, when they are commuting to work, from work, sometimes they have an opportunity to do their homework. A couple of years ago, I was teaching a group of Polish students, and they were extremely committed, extremely disciplined. They were doing everything. Their English was higher than actually the level that they were supposed to study. And they said, guys, what's your secret? How are you so good? Do you have some unbelievable school system or what? How did you manage? And they didn't understand me. They said, we just do our homework, and when we go to work and from work, so an hour to work, an hour from work, that's all for studying English. They read something, they listen to something, they don't waste this commuting time.
Sometimes some students complain that if they try to do homework on their way home from work, so that they miss the right button. They know the answer, but they can't, they miss it. They miss the right button. That's why the answer is wrong. Because the transport does move smoothly. Okay. It's somehow trembling. And
yeah, that's a good excuse.
So that's how mistakes appear in their answers.
Right. Okay. Yeah. If you think about it, points 2 and 3, they kind of contradict each other, because if you are traveling somewhere, you probably have some distractions around you. If they cannot concentrate, they should find some quiet place for their homework. Also, it's important to know when you are most productive. Some people are night owls, some people are larks. If you're trying to do your homework late at night, when in fact you should be in bed, it won't be successful enough. You will just fall asleep, right? And vice versa. And we can all build English into our routines. Sometimes people just don't realize what they can substitute with English. Like, your student wakes up, makes a cup of coffee, and scrolls through his Facebook news feed, and they want to maybe read some news or do something else. They can do the same things in English. They can subscribe to some English-speaking bloggers and do the same reading, but it will be of some assistance. What else do we have? Yeah, some students really do homework in this way. All right, so another question that I had was about your attitude to students' homework. And as we can see, 90% of you try to persuade them that homework is essential. You have to do homework. And if we recollect the questions that I put on my first slide, they were all about, you know, teachers being very responsible for the process. How can I persuade my student? How can I convince my students? How can I make them do homework? How can I find something how can I do something? Yes, no, how can my students do it? Okay, that's something for us to think about. We'll get back to that later. So which approaches to working with homework at the lesson do you like and why? I'm giving you a minute to read. This is all from your poll responses. Okay, so who is ready to comment on that? Anyone?
Actually, all the approaches are fine. So, like during our warm up, we can discuss our mistakes, or if the score is low, go back and discuss as well. Yes. So all the approaches are great, in my opinion.
Okay. Any other opinions?
But all the approaches presuppose that at least some part of the homework is done. But for example, when you open and this is 0, 0, 0, 0, actually I get very upset and I show it to the student. Or just because I'm on good terms with all my students, I always do such an expression on my face that as if it's for me a big problem. That they didn't do their home task, they feel ashamed and always promise me to do.
That's another way to motivate them extrinsically. I don't want to upset my teacher, that's why I have to do my homework. Well, if it works. While of course it's important to discuss problems if there are problems, I can also make some face expression about seeing a lot of comments like, we discuss problems, we discuss mistakes, I point out their mistakes, I comment on their mistakes, I correct what was wrong, and so on. So it's all about giving negative feedback. While, you know, we have students who are not really willing to do homework or they're reluctant to do what seems difficult, why don't we praise them for what they have done? Even if there were mistakes, still, I hope there was at least something that was correct, right? So we can start with that. We can give them some positive feedback. I like those ideas. Like, so what was interesting? What was challenging? What else? Yeah, actually, I probably didn't copy when they were the same ideas. I like idea number 5 about discussing it with the students. So how much can you spend on homework? How much can I give you so that you really do homework? So I think that's important too. I'm not really sure about discussing the results of the homework during the warm-up, because still for many students it's kind of stressful, because they can expect that something was wrong, they made some mistakes, and warm-up is all about, you know, feeling comfortable, climate, yes, creating some supportive atmosphere. So maybe after that, when you see that the student has tuned in, maybe then you can discuss your homework. And sending questions while doing homework is brilliant. Answering their questions in detail is also a great idea. Yeah, so just...
I'm sorry, may I ask a question?
Sure.
About the fifth point. So if my students answer that they don't have an opportunity to do homework at all, so what can I do with that? How to deal with such students and their homework?
Oh, well, that's a good question, right? So if you, let's imagine that you say, okay, maybe you just don't know how to find this time. I will give you homework anyway, and we'll see what you can do. What will happen? They won't do homework. You will be upset. You will be making faces or explaining again and again how important it's to do the homework, but the homework won't be done, right? But again, if we are very interested in something, if it's fun for us, we don't make excuses that we don't have time. If with time you can see that your student is interested in this or that activity or topic or whatever, and you suggest doing something, not a fill in the gaps activity. No one is interested in that, to be honest, right? It's boring. But if you offer something that is fun, that is engaging, interesting, they're more likely to do it, right? And then with time, they can get used to doing something between lessons, and then you can actually suggest different types of homework.
Can I say something?
Of course.
Yeah, it's just you mentioned that point about praising students, yeah. But who says that we don't do that? It's just I think that when we were answering the questions, you know, that came before the meeting, I guess we're also focused on thinking over like the moments when we talk about their mistakes, their problems. So we did actually include, I guess, this like praising moment because we do that without saying. Sorry for the pun. But, yeah, but that's the thing. I guess we do that.
Right, it's great if you do that, and I'm sure many of you do that, but that's what I got in the poll. So my question was, how do you discuss their homework? And most of the responses were about mistakes. Well,
sorry. I mean, we praise them because, I mean, whenever they do their homework, I mean, we're jumping around the room like, oh my God, yes, you've done the homework.
It never hurts to exaggerate your reaction a bit because, well,
trust me, I do that.
Funny. It works. I used to have a student who never did his homework for like, I don't know, 2 months maybe. And then somehow he sent me his homework and I wrote him an email immediately like, oh my God, I still remember his name. Oh my God, you have done your homework. Wow, you've made my day. That's so exciting. Ooh. He started doing his homework. Maybe not every week, but at least he started.
It's progress.
Yeah.
In this case, I usually say that, oh my God, maybe it's some sort of computer virus because I see your homework is done and it couldn't have been you. So probably the computer virus destroyed the homework and the results are surprisingly good. So definitely that's not, and then they are like, no, it was me. And they really appreciate that they've been praised.
Yeah, that works. Some flattery never hurts. If we give them some additional homework, again, let's look at the list of options that I copied from your responses. Let's see what you like here. Oh, I can see some wonderful additions to my presentation. Lively stripes in my slides. Yeah, that makes them more beautiful, of course. So, any comments on that? So anyone, especially those who haven't spoken yet, please go ahead.
You can give your student additional homework about something they are interested in. Something connected with their hobbies, interests, job, anything else. For example, someone wants to be prepared for the interview for a job. So you can discuss that and give him an appropriate article or something like that, or a video.
Right, that usually works if they're interested. Okay.
And
sometimes, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. It's just I want to ask Dmitry, I guess, was saying. So whenever you send such things like an article, for example, do you say that, oh my God, it's your like additional homework, or do you say just, oh, you know, I found something interesting, maybe you should read that? It depends on how you do this. How do you do that?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
In my case, yeah.
Girls the first.
No, in my case, like my students have some difficulty with the grammar rules, and then I give him like a set of homework already from the Vim box, and then he said like it's not enough for him. If it's okay if I look for other websites, and I'll give him like some exercises from another website, and then I would probably forward it back to him, and then on the next lesson he would say like, oh, those exercises are really effective. I learned a lot from those exercises, and it would have been enough for him.
Right, nothing's wrong with giving some extra grammar practice or vocabulary practice if they need that, if you think that they will do it. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Exactly. Yeah. Go ahead, boy. Dmitry.
Oh yeah. You can ask some, for example, to sing their favorite song in English and try to stress and sound like their singer. Original. Some of them liked it.
If they can sing, I would be horrified to do this task, to be honest.
Oh, come on, just drink some.
I am tone deaf.
No, I just even use my private time out of the lesson to listen to them.
Okay. Anything else that you like from these approaches? Anyone? Right, what do I have in the chat? Oh, useful links. If you can share, I think everyone will appreciate it. And as usual, I have some questions to think about. And the first two questions are quite, rhetorical. Does their homework look like something they would do in real life, or like something that they would do for fun? If you can say yes to both questions, then chances are your students will do this homework. All those additional activities for practicing grammar and vocabulary, they're really helpful. No one denies that. But for students who are not very willing to do homework, sometimes they're a bit boring, right? So if we find something more realistic, because they can also practice grammar by doing something related to their real life. So they can practice, I don't know, present continuous for making plans by actually making plans for the next weekend, right? And so on. Another question I would like actually to hear something about that. If you offer additional activities that look like fun, like watching TV shows, reading something, reading articles, reading some blogs, reading a book, listening to an audiobook, are your students more willing to do such homework?
Sure.
Why?
I mean, come on. Actually, that was me, let's say, in the chat talking about the monster, saying homework is monster. So once again, they see that as a monster, and here they see it as fun once again, and they really want to do it because it's something that they like, and they don't perceive it as something like, like a torture or something. So yeah, of course, they do that.
Okay. Nothing's wrong with having fun.
Depends on the needs of the students. If, for example, the student likes reading books, and I can suggest doing that it will be not only for fun, it will be like useful for the student. Because I have such a girl, she likes reading a lot, and I offered her devote one lesson for reading audiobooks at our platform and discussing them. So now she feels comfortable. She likes it very much. She does everything for that lesson. She usually does everything, but this lesson especially. So we need to check their needs, their hobbies, their interests first of all. But you like watching videos and your student doesn't, yeah, that will make no sense.
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea for sure. And thanks to those who are sharing links in the chat and some ideas too. So this link will be clickable with some homework ideas, like, you know, different types of activities that you can suggest. When you get the presentation in the mail, you will be able to explore that. And back to the point of, you know, what language we are using while talking about their homework. So we try to remind them, to explain it to them, to insist, to persuade, to look for some alternative ways, while actually we're talking about adults who pay for their lessons. Why are they so reluctant to, you know, get something for the money they pay? I think that while, of course, sometimes people just don't realize how language learning works, and we need to explain something, still, it's really good to develop their learner autonomy, so their ability to set their own goals and take charge of achieving those goals. Why is it a good idea? Because, well, it makes your work easier, first of all, and if the student is autonomous, the student spends more time, not just 2 lessons per week. They find some time between lessons, and they're actually more interested, more motivated, and usually those students become your long-term students. What can you do to develop their autonomous learning? You can suggest some cooperative learning. A good question is, how can we do it if we work one-on-one? We'll get to that really soon. You can give them some learning situations, like problem-based, task-based, something that requires them to use their knowledge to actually solve some real-life problem. If you have any examples, please throw them in the chat. Like one example that I just provided was to plan their own weekend. You can ask them to reflect on their learning. It's really great when students can do it. Sometimes, if you notice that, you can be amazed at how much they reflect on their achievements, what they do, how they do, and so on. An easy way to check it would be to start a Google Doc with them and offer just writing some short notes about each lesson, if they're willing, of course, to do that. Assembling portfolios so that you can show them that a month ago you were writing like this. Now, let's see how much you have achieved. The same about speaking. If they record their speaking, they can notice that in a couple of months it really gets better. You can also offer them to use self-assessment. In some course books, there are interesting ideas that you can borrow, like I can do it well, smiley face, I can do it with some help, not very smiley, I don't understand how to do it, some sad face, and so on. So you can introduce similar scales to your students for them to you know, give you feedback after the lesson, and just for themselves to understand how they're doing. A question that could arise here is the following. If they're so autonomous, do they need teachers? Won't they all drop out? I would say that no, they won't, and they do need teachers because we create the learning environment for them and maintain it, of course. We support them. Still, overconfident students are not very common. We can find more inconfident students that think that their English is not good enough, they won't understand this video, they won't be able to read this book, they will just dry up and won't be able to talk to an English-speaking person if they happen to meet one. So they need some support to believe in themselves. And of course, we can encourage their development as learners of English, as users of English. So they do need us as some, you know, helpful practitioners who just guide them on this way to mastering English. Of course, all this is easier done if you keep in touch with your students. So what can we say from the poll? That about a quarter keeps in touch with their students every now and again. Maybe like Lolita told us just to send them some link to the video, audio, some article or something like this. That counts too, right? And most of you are open to some communication, but you wait for the student to initiate it. Yes, so if they have questions, if they can problems, they can contact you. So why is it a good idea to keep in touch with them? First of all, you give them extra opportunities to practice English. If you send some funny picture with some English phrase, you know, if it's just a minute, but still it's some extra practice for them, especially if it's something longer, like some article or a video and so on. If you do that, it helps you to establish a good rapport with them. So you are not just some token application to the platform. You are a person who they know, who they share something with, who can help them. So they trust you more, and they know that you are supporting them. So they are more willing and more able to learn in such a situation. And it's some extra motivation. By sharing those videos, you lead them to that group of people who watch videos in English and so on. They understand that, okay, I like cooking and my teacher likes cooking and she shares some recipes with me, so now I can use English to actually Google some recipe by myself, and this is my instrumental motivation. I need English to become a better cook, whichever their motivation is, whichever their interests are. How can you do it? You can be friends with them on social networks. You can just send them some chat messages. You can send them some kind of newsletters, and you can actually send it to all of your students. It saves time. Some word of the day, some definition and some examples, maybe some grammar tip of the week, some funny video of the week. It also saves you time because they all have something additional from you that you can discuss during your warm-ups, or in case if the student comes to the lesson absolutely unprepared with no materials, like driving the car and talking to you, still you can talk about whatever you sent them before. You can also organize some group challenges, some reading, watching, speaking, writing marathons, maybe some clubs, like book clubs, movie clubs, music, cooking, fishing, whatever interests you share with the students. You can somehow group them together, like make a group chat in Skype, and or maybe a Facebook group if that works for you, and again share some materials, discuss some questions, and so on. So if anyone has any experience with actually doing that, could you please share it now?
Social networks.
Okay, can you tell us about that?
And also meeting in real life. I mean, a lot of my students live in Moscow, and whenever I come there, just visit my parents, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, whenever I come there, I try to meet with them so that we would, so that they would feel me, like touch me, like, Lola, oh my God, you're real. So that's the thing, yeah. And look, movie clubs, yeah, sometimes.
Well, with some of my students, we have a really nice habit of exchanging books. And yes, maybe I'm praising at the moment, but I really don't mean to. But just yesterday, I received very nice present from one of my students who went to London 1.5 months ago. And, it feels so good when you understand that not only you think of your students in your free time, but when your students don't forget about you when they are abroad, and they send some greeting cards just to say hello, just to say thank you, because they are in that country and they could communicate with all the locals. And, it's a great habit because I encourage them to read in English, yes, and they just feel ashamed not to read something. But sure, I always try to find something relevant to my students' interests or hobbies, something informative for them. So yes, it's one of the ways to push them do some extra homework in their free time.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you. Anything else? So anyone, maybe someone shares different links with your students. How exactly do you do that? Do you just throw the link in the chat, or do you write some short note about that?
From time to time, I use videos from the site Coursera. You know, do you know this site? So it is extremely useful because I often ask my students if they are interested in some specific topic, and we can use this video and some tasks.
Okay, yes, if they're interested in something more academic, that's a good resource. Okay, thanks.
For example, sometimes some questions can come up during the lesson, and I, for example, can't give the answer right now. And I suggest searching this information on the internet and after the lesson, giving the answer. So I can send some links with information with the answer to this question to my student, to discuss it later, or maybe just to find out something new. So at the same time, the student has a chance to read some additional information, maybe about some traditions or about some idioms, phrases, which he or she didn't know earlier. It's like additional practice.
Okay, yeah, sounds like a good idea too. Right. Has anyone done any challenges for the group of students? Reading, writing, listening marathons?
Yeah, I've recently created a special group for my marathon runners, but frankly speaking, I am a bit disappointed. It didn't meet my expectations because, you know, all the students feel so shy to share not just their results, but even opinions on the topic, and they all continue sending me the results and just some extra links in our private chat, to our private chat, and no, and there were just one or two students who really tried to establish contact, with the others, but the others didn't respond, so they never turned up, so to say, and unfortunately it failed.
Yeah, it could fail, of course, because not everyone could be interested in that. Maybe it shouldn't be for all of your students, like the whole list, right? Maybe you can start with those who are more willing to do that. You know.
No. You know, the weirdest thing is that before adding them to that group, I really questioned them if they want to be a member of the group, and they all said like, yes, we do. I think it's something interesting, something new. And I know that they go to the links, so they examine the information, but just one or two shared not their results, but again, opinions, and the progress with the others, but I even don't know what the problem is about, and I tried to interview my students, but they all said like, oh yeah, but I just forgot, I will do it.
Well, it's hard to say why they didn't commit to what they found interesting, of course, right? I don't know, maybe
they just don't want to brag about their progress, like not to look too arrogant or self-confident, you know.
Or
maybe some provocative questions.
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Ladies first. It's just maybe they saw that it was actually real. You know, it was the same thing as I know you want to buy some, I don't know, nice dress. You look it up on the internet. You're like, oh my God, that's so amazing. Yeah, I want to do that. I want to just have it. And then as soon as you come to the shop, you're like, no, I don't like it. So the same thing here, you know, just they expected that it would be like in the other way. They thought they were ready. They were not. And they saw that it was actually really, you know, like implementation of your knowledge. But no.
Yeah, it might be. Thank you, girls. I will try maybe to change something next time.
Also, sometimes you have students who are really active, and you can imagine that if they were in a in a real group, they would monopolize the conversation. They would be actually some teachers' helpers. They would do a lot of things and actually make your life easier, right? Maybe you can just ask one of your students who seems to be very active. So, can you please help me? We'll organize this group chat, and can you contribute to that? Can you share some opinions on what you have read or listened or whatever your chat is about? Could you maybe ask some questions to other members, like, what do you think, Masha? Not just, some smiley in response. Maybe if you have a helper, if it's not just you throwing stuff in this chat, maybe if there's an active student, maybe then the others would be also more willing to do that.
Yeah, thanks a bunch. I will try.
Okay, good luck with that. Also, it's good not only for you to keep in touch with your students, but for different students to keep in touch with each other. However positive and experienced we are about individual teaching and learning, still, group work also has its benefits, and our students do lack something by working only with a teacher. Because it's really important for them to develop something that can be called positive interdependence. So if they are in this group and they know that there's a Masha who is very active and is sharing some ideas and is asking them questions, and maybe her English is a bit better and she can help them. So she likes being helpful and important. So Masha benefits from this chat. All the other students benefit from communicating with her, and it helps all of them. It's good for them to develop some personal responsibility. So it's another type of homework if you think about it. If they write something in the chat, it's also their English practice, right? And they feel responsible to keep this group going. So they will feel more responsible about the other types of homework, right? And peer interaction, to communicate with the person who has more or less the same level of English as you do, is also beneficial for them, because they don't expect as much help as from the teacher. They usually, well, even if they all share the same first language, still they are in the group, and the rules are that we speak English in this group. They will try to get their point across, to maybe rephrase something in order to be understood, because maybe it's easier for them if they know that the person will actually use more or less the same words that they do. And again, how to make them communicate. You can do it on social networks, or you can have some group projects for them. Of course, it requires some time and energy from you as a teacher, but the benefit is that you receive committed long-term students. So maybe it's worth trying. Okay, let me sum it up. So what can we do to help our students realize that lessons are not enough? They should do something between the lessons. We should help them become more autonomous learners. We can find out what motivates them and work with that. We can make their homework fun and more applicable to their real life. Help them manage their time too, because maybe they have more time than realize now. We can keep in touch between lessons. We can organize group projects to let them get to know more English learners. And we can just relax, because we're not their parents. We don't have to supervise them in everything. Yeah? So we can offer some opportunities, but it's up to them to take something on board or not. Okay, so as we can see, some of our colleagues have to go. The next lesson is coming. If you still have some questions or some answers to the questions that we looked at the beginning of our seminar, or if you have some feedback, we still have 5 minutes to do that.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Just
Mm-hmm.
let's say at the beginning of the meeting, I was silent because I was like let's say on the bus. Anyway, you mentioned a lot of times that, oh my God, you know, a student is an adult. So this person is an adult. Why doesn't he do homework? Don't you think that it doesn't actually depend on his or her age? I mean, if you're an adult, you may be not that responsible or something. So like this connection, I don't really like it. You know, student, adult, doesn't mean that you will have the same result.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a good question. But what I mean is sometimes children, they don't make their own decisions. Their parents decided that they have to study English and they are forced to do that. So they might be reluctant to do their homework just because, you know, they never chose to do this homework in the first place. For example, if I decide as an adult, yes, if I decide, let's say, to learn Spanish and I find a teacher,
Hola.
why would I ignore my homework if I pay for that? If it was my decision, no one forced me, it's not someone else who chose those lessons and that teacher for me. So why would I be so unhelpful for myself?
But you know, that's the thing, because you're an industrious student, let's say, yeah, and you think of it from the from teacher's perspective. And if we actually look at the students, some of them think that, oh my God, you know, my teacher has a magic wand, so you know, and then you have your knowledge. No, you don't. So it doesn't actually depend on your age. It depends on how well you are ready for that. But let's say, I wouldn't say that if you're an adult, let's say you've paid, so it's logical. No, it's not logical. There's no reasoning in that. So I don't really like the link. Sorry, just.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually a good point. So many of them just don't realize what it means to learn something.
Yeah.
Maybe they forgot how they were doing it at school, or maybe they have never been good learners. That's why we should develop their learning autonomy, for them to realize what they're doing, how they're doing it, for them to be more aware of all the processes that are happening with them, that there's no magic wand, there's just hard or not so hard work.
Yeah.
Can I ask what this helicopter parent means?
Do you have children?
No,
such a personal
that means I
question.
don't understand.
You know that there are some parents that are like all over the children, that control every move, every step, that don't make them, don't let them make their own decisions. There's
like hovering almost.
Yes. There's a Russian joke about a boy who is playing outside and his mom says, come home, whatever his name is, I don't remember, like, Vasya, come home. And he turns to her, am I cold? No, you're hungry. So he doesn't even know if he's cold or hungry or tired or whatever. Yeah? So his mom makes all decisions instead of him. We shouldn't do the same for our students, even if, oh my, sorry, even if they expect it from us. Still,
so cute.
It's working.
Yeah. And I will have some well-developed muscles soon.
Oh, bless.
I have a question.
Yes.
Has anyone ever had a problem when you were too assertive, like do the homework, and the student actually, like, there's too much pressure on them, and they just stop. They just, you know, this is too much. You're asking me to do too much. You know, I'm done. I'm leaving. Has anyone had this problem?
May I try to respond to this question? Yes, I've had this situation before, but usually in this case, I suggest my students to do homework together. I'm learning 2 foreign languages at the moment, and I understand that sometimes it gets really busy. And when it's messy, I am sincere, yes, and I just honestly tell my teacher, I'm sorry, I haven't done my homework and I don't have any free time at the moment, so even don't expect that from me. And I usually say, well, let's do it together, because I understand how important it is to practice all the rules, all the grammar structures together, and the new words, the glossary. And that's what I suggest to my students too. I usually say, we had that wonderful seminar, and now we're all doing the course on our special site, right, Skyway. So it's great if you just suggest to offer them one extra lesson, yes, for doing homework together. And you know, many students really agree, yes, to this proposal and to this offer. So maybe it's a good solution. I'm not sure though, but it's my opinion.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, you know, being assertive shouldn't turn into being aggressive. And I think it's the aggressive attitude that could lead the student to just give up, you know. And
yeah, I'm just asking this because I'm not very assertive, you know. If the student says, you know, I'm too busy to do homework, I'm like, okay, it's your right, you know. You'll be slower, the progress will be slower, but
yeah, as long as you discuss it with the students so that they have realistic expectations and they know what their actions lead to, I think you will be fine.
Thanks.
Okay, then. Any more questions, suggestions, feedback? Anything?
Even if you're a teacher, don't forget how it is to be a student. Think, let's say, from both ways. That's my resume.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, then. So,
thank you so much.
Thank you. So if we have discussed everything, then thank you very much. I've enjoyed it as usual. Hope it was of some help. You will have some follow-up poll as usual, so make sure you let me know what you have learned from this seminar or what we can improve. So leave your feedback there. Yeah, I can work having a baby in my hands.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So I hope it was not too distracting. Sorry. Oops, some questions. So thank you very much. Enjoy teaching and talk to you next week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.